Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. We're going to break down something that is just truly fascinating and honestly deeply important. We're looking at how the Resurgence Network for Human Rights, or RNHR, takes these incredibly heavy, dense international treaties and literally translates them into everyday, practical tools for regular people. I mean, if you've ever looked at a massive legal document and thought, okay, but how does this actually help anyone on the ground? You are in exactly the right place. We're going to see how RNHR bridges that massive gap between global human rights law and local community support. Right off the bat, I want to ground us in this reality check straight from the source material. Many people should not have to navigate complex systems alone. Behind every single human rights intake, behind every request for legal or humanitarian support, there's a real person just seeking safety, stability, or honestly just a bit of hope. People facing crises, whether that's housing, discrimination, or displacement, almost always run into the most complicated bureaucratic and legal systems at the exact moment they have the absolute least amount of energy to deal with them. It's just a fundamental mismatch, you know?
Which leads us to this really critical question. How do you find clarity when the system feels completely overwhelming? When you're in the thick of a crisis, the system basically looks like a maze with no exit. But what if you had a map? Well, the answer, that map, starts with having the right vocabulary. It's all about having the specific language you need to advocate for yourself and for your community.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. Navigating complex rights systems. 2. The power of naming rights. 3. Practical action through workshops. 4. Accessible learning with webinars. 5. Direct support through mentorship. And finally, 6. Finding clarity and next steps. Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, Navigating Complex Rights Systems. To really understand RNHR's educational solutions, we first have to understand the people who are actually being forced to enter this maze of legal and social systems every single day. We are talking about severe overlapping crises here: housing instability, discrimination, intense legal confusion, displacement and persecution, and just an overarching social vulnerability. RNHR's data shows that these challenges disproportionately hit newcomers, refugees, low-income individuals, and displaced youth and families. These are folks who are being forced to figure out incredibly dense legal pathways exactly when they shouldn't have to do it alone. The burden is just way too high. Moving on to Section 2, the power of naming rights. Here is the crucial takeaway. You cannot defend a right if you literally don't know how to name it. And this is exactly where RNHR steps in, to demystify these massive international instruments. Take the ICCPR, for example, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. This is a global UN treaty focused on big concepts like liberty, fair process, and freedom from torture. Then compare that with the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. This is an African Union treaty that does something super interesting. It places individual rights right alongside collective people's rights, like the right to development. And it even recognizes duties to society and family. RNHR basically takes these high-level diplomatic texts and turns them into actual usable frameworks. They help communities understand exactly who owes them a duty and how to organize their evidence responsibly. Which brings us to Section 3, Practical Action Through Workshops. So how does this actually look on the ground? Well, this is how RNHR delivers all that knowledge to the community level: workshops. These are practical, hands-on sessions. They aren't dry, theoretical college lectures. They are deeply, deeply focused on rights literacy, helping people navigate services, manage their documentation, and build really clear referral pathways. These workshops are the absolute engine of RNHR's education strategy. They're giving people the literal, tangible tools to navigate something like a sudden housing eviction or a complex legal crisis without completely panicking. And inside these sessions, they use this brilliantly exact practical breakdown. Step 1, which right is involved? Are we talking about dignity, fair process, equality? Step 2, who has the duty? Is it a state actor, a public institution, a private entity? And Step 3, and honestly, this one is so incredibly critical for vulnerable populations: what evidence is safe to share? RNHR trains people to use non-identifying summaries first. They teach them to avoid sharing sensitive banking details, ID numbers, or frankly anything that might increase their personal risk. It's highly practical, highly protective education.
All right, Section 4, Accessible Learning with Webinars.
Now we're shifting gears a bit from the hands-on local workshops in a community center to a broader digital approach. Webinars are these accessible, wide-reaching online learning modules. And why does this matter? Well, because webinars are exactly how RNHR scales this critical rights literacy.
By putting the Human Rights Academy online, they're connecting local Canadian community support with international learners, diaspora groups, and global NGO partners. It ensures that distance or, your physical location isn't a barrier to understanding your rights or learning how to safely document rights violations.
Let's look at Section 5, direct support through mentorship. If webinars give you the scale, mentorship gives you the depth. This is all about dedicated, one-on-one or small group learning that's tailored specifically for students and community participants. Mentorship is just so crucial because it ensures that those complex legal concepts we talked about earlier, like how to actually apply the ICCPR or the African Charter, are deeply understood. This is how RNHR takes those treaties off the page and builds the next generation of highly capable, fully literate human rights advocates. And finally, Section 6, finding clarity and next steps. Let's see how all of this builds into real, tangible impact for the people actually doing the work. Just listen to this real-world feedback from an RNHR workshop participant. They said, "The workshop gave our group clearer language for rights, dignity, and safety." I mean, that is the ultimate proof of concept right there. When you teach someone how to name their rights, when you give them the education, the mentorship, those safe documentation protocols, you successfully transform a terrifying, overwhelming system into a map they can actually read. Practical help quite literally changes what feels possible for these communities.
Which leaves us with this final thought to really chew on. If you had the clear language to name your rights today, how would you transform your community tomorrow? RNHR shows us, plain and simple, that education isn't just about reading dusty treaties. It's about empowerment, it's about safety, and it's about action. I highly encourage you to think about how these frameworks of rights, duties, and safe evidence might apply to your own local systems. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep learning.